You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Football Podcast as we head into what looks like another busy weekend and a crucial weekend in the Premier League. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. You can see Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke on your screen if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, either or. If you hit that like button or follow or subscribe wherever you're watching or listening, it is the best no-cost way of supporting what we do here in Matchbook, and we're always much appreciated of that. Insights.matchbook.com. We see huge numbers going over there. Just search Matchbook Insights. You'll get a full recap of all the guys' picks, and then do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Invariably, you are going to get the best price on the odds checker grid, given it's the nature of an exchange. But you can, of course, check out our bet builders, and they have proved quite popular once again over the last few weeks. And we did land the £10 podcast bet builder money back special in the Champions League. Well overdue from the lads, but 5.0 shot for anyone who stayed loyal there. Basically landed with a Manchester City consolation goal last minute. Madrid to win, both teams to score, and the under 4.5 goals. We have a fun one coming up with Manchester City versus Liverpool, and that is where we're going to start the other three games, incidentally: Everton, United, Villa, Chelsea, Newcastle, Forest. But yeah, let's start at the Etihad Stadium and what used to be the best two teams in the Premier League. Manchester City are underdogs at home to Liverpool. Can you believe that? Basically 2-1 there, just under at 2.98. Liverpool 2.4. The draw is 3-1, 4.0. Both teams to score, yes, around the 1.4 mark currently on Matchbook. The Asian handicap line sees City get a quarter goal head start at home at 189, and the total for this one currently stands at 3.5. So, Mark, yeah, my first question is, like, how did we get here that we have such a big price on Manchester City at home to Liverpool? And has the market overreacted or even underreacted? It's hard to know.
First answer the question, where have you been, Dan? Have you not seen Man City play for the last 3 months?
Or last night.
Yes, even, yeah. Second question, I think potentially they've overreacted a little bit. And I'll let you into a little secret. When I put my bet into the sheet first, I was having a pro Manchester City angle. I've taken it out. I've gone elsewhere, actually, because I just don't want to get involved in the match result, in all honesty. I did feel there was an opportunity to oppose Liverpool at the prices because they are pretty short. It's almost unheard of to see them at these kind of prices away at the Etihad. But look, they're favourites for a reason. The numbers tell us a story. They've won the XG battle in 22 of their 26 league games so far this season. They have been quite clearly the best and most consistent team in the Premier League across the campaign. There's a slight advantage too. Both sides played away on Wednesday night. Liverpool only playing in Birmingham compared to Madrid, so they'll be home tucked up in bed much earlier than City's players would be. But I don't know. I didn't want to overreact to Man City's performance against Newcastle last weekend, so I was quite pro Real Madrid going into that second leg, which we talked about in depth. But I also don't want to overreact as well to what we saw on Wednesday night, because particularly in the second half, City looked like they'd just kind of given up the ghost, tried to preserve energy and focus on what is now a very crucial period for them to try and secure Champions League football for next season. The one thing that puts me off really is the injuries. John Stones going off again in midweek, and Erling Haaland, we know, wasn't fit enough to even get off the bench in midweek. So is he going to be okay for the weekend? We don't know. Stones is a big miss anyhow. But what I was trying to do in my prep is trying to sort of decipher where and when City do tend to have these blow-ups, and the majority of them do come away from the Etihad. If you look at their record at home across all competitions this season, they have still only lost 3 games, which is a bloody good record considering how awful they've been for the most part. Look, they've been dogged by injuries, loss of form, lack of athleticism in midfield, individual errors, and all the rest of it. But since Christmas, at least in the Premier League, they have been pretty dominant at home. 4-1 versus West Ham, 3-1 versus Chelsea, 4-0 versus Newcastle. Obviously, there's Real Madrid in there too. But for Liverpool, I've not been as convinced lately. And they're in the middle of this really busy, hectic period of matches. I think they've played every 3.5 days for something like 2 or 3 months at the minute. And they have looked a bit leggy. We saw in the second half against Wolves last week at Anfield, outshot, didn't even have a shot of their own actually, but they're outshot 16-10 overall, failed to have a second half shot against Wolves, were sort of clinging on a little bit in that second half. In midweek against Villa, they score from a really bad error from Villa and a deflected goal. Had opportunities in that first half to score goals. Darwin Núñez obviously in the second half as well, but they again just looked a little bit fatigued. Go back to the derby at Everton. Didn't seem to match Everton's intensity on that occasion. You can kind of forget the cup games against PSV and Plymouth. Brentford, they were great. Had to wait late on for that win. Bournemouth, they gave up plenty of big moments, and then you got to go back to Tottenham, even in the EFL Cup semi-final first leg, where they lost. And they have only won once in 5 trips to the top half now this season. They only won twice at the top 11 last season. So do I really want to get involved with them at these kind of prices when we know City do have the players to potentially step up for a big match that matters at home? The answer was no, but also there's reasons to avoid City, even though that sort of plus quarter of a goal start is kind of winking at me a little bit. It's almost unheard of. We get the opportunity to back City with a start at home. So what I'm going to do here instead is just leave the result, leave the goals alone, and go under on cards, because Anthony Taylor is the referee here. As we know, his numbers have gone down significantly since the start of the season, when on 2 occasions he gave double-figure card totals. But this match doesn't tend to produce that many cards. 9 of the last 11 meetings between the pair have gone under 4.5 cards. Anthony Taylor himself has gone under the line in 15 of 22 Premier League games this season. But more interestingly is that drop-off. 12 of his last 15 fixtures have gone under 4.5. 11 of those 15 went under 3.5. And despite those kind of 2 wild games where he gave 14 and 10 cards, his average for the season is only 3.32, which kind of goes to show how he is on this kind of downturn in cards. And interestingly too, the Premier League is as well. We saw the first sort of 2/3 of the campaign be quite card heavy, really. There was a bit of a frenzy towards cards. The league average overall this campaign has been 4.55. But take out the last 95 Premier League games, 64 of those have seen 4 cards or fewer, an average of 3.66, which is almost a full card down over the last third of the campaign, which is actually quite significant, I think. And I don't think it's been matched by the market just yet. So under 4.5 cards would be my recommendation here at around about 1.8.
I saw the selection in the sheet this morning and knew Anthony Taylor was the referee of Manchester City versus Liverpool without having to look it up, which is amazing. And I did the hard work of watching Palace versus Everton, and I can echo what Mark says. Once you see something, or you see Taylor through that prison of not giving cards, I mean, there should have been 6 or 7 cards in that game. It was almost,
he was enjoying himself, wasn't he? He was quite happy, just kind of keeping them in his pocket. Yeah,
it was honestly, there was advantages being played when there was no advantage, just so he didn't have to book the player. It was extraordinary. Adrian, you're staying away from cards, and you are going to have a little flyer at some of the win markets here.
Yeah, I fancy a flyer. Yeah, look, we can't both sit on the fence, can we? So yeah, I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna back the better team, and that's Liverpool. Simple as that. I know that they are looking fatigued, and there's certainly an edge has gone from them in the last couple of games. I think it's getting to them a little bit, actually. I think that they're getting a bit nervy. I don't know how else to explain what happened against Wolves, other than that they're getting a little bit edgy. Against Villa, some of the finishing, again, nervous in my opinion, but they did create plenty, didn't they? Even if the 2 goals were very lucky, in terms of one being a gift, of being a deflection, they did create plenty of chances. The reason I want to side with Liverpool is because they're the better side, but also just stylistically. And I know we said this last week about Newcastle, who had just a weird bad day at the office. Liverpool are set up to really hurt Manchester City, aren't they? They'll go long. They'll switch play with Van Dijk to Salah for fun. They'll go over the left back's head numerous times. And City, don't change their way, do they? They'll always keep that highish line, and they'll have opportunities to spring those attacks. No one can come close to the number of shots that Liverpool have had from fast breaks this season, or the number of goals they've scored from fast breaks. Opponents keep falling for it, and City are going to have to go for it, aren't they? They're going to win it. They want to win the game, get top 4, to restore some pride. They're going to look to dominate, and that will leave gaps. And I just think with Salah and co, I got a feeling Gakpo might be ready for this. I think that those 2 can cause big problems for Manchester City. So yeah, I'm going to pair it with both teams to score to get a bit more juice out of it. Both teams to score is like 1.4 or something, really short, isn't it? So that 2 point something that you can get on Liverpool goes to 3.35 if you add in both teams scoring. City have conceded in 9 of 12 home games. They've conceded multiple goals in 4 of 12 home games. As for Liverpool, they've scored 2 or more goals in 9 of their last 10 away games, the only exception being Forest. But, they've conceded as well in 5 of their 7 away to the top 12. So I think that both teams are very, very likely to score. Little fun one for you in terms of the stats. The day of the week shouldn't matter, but Liverpool unbeaten in 13 matches on a Sunday, which you might think is no biggie, but they've scored multiple goals in all of those 13 matches on a Sunday. I think they can absolutely get multiple goals here, especially with Mo Salah, who tends to score a lot, full stop, but also a lot in this fixture. So yeah, look, I could make a case against Liverpool and pro City, especially after what we saw against Newcastle. But the better team of Liverpool, and I think the matchup in styles suits Liverpool better than Manchester City. So yeah, I'm gonna go for it. And look, if they lose, it's a bonus for Arsenal, isn't it? Liverpool and both teams to score 3.35.
Win-win for Adrian on Sunday around 6:30, whatever way the result goes. But yeah, we'll lock in, because we're going to combine this for a £10 money back bet builder special. So back this following bet: Liverpool to win, both teams to score in under 4.5 cards. That is 4.75 on the matchbook bet builder. Just do that, and you'll get our money back as a free bet Monday morning if the bet loses up to £10. We obviously landed the 5.0 shot in BeGambleAware, so looking for 2 in a row there for Manchester City versus Liverpool. Okay, let's start and go back in time to the early kickoff on Saturday. It's Everton versus Manchester United. Everton 262 favourites against Manchester United 3.1. Some of these prices are extraordinary. If you just jumped in mid-season here and looked at some of these, the draw is 3.3. Both teams to score, yes, is currently 196, slight favourite in that market. And the Asian handicap line is draw no bet, but Everton the favourites at 183, and the total for this game stands at 2.5. Unders 174. Adrian, we'll go straight back to you for this one. You're not expecting a classic.
No, I mean, yeah, the Spurs United game was pretty tough to watch. I think this might be similar. Like United are in a bad state, aren't they, at the moment? Just looking a little bit bereft of ideas, of sort of confidence, and the football's not thrilling to watch at all. And look, Everton, this is Everton under Moyes, who have been miles better. That, he's got them pretty much to safety now. Absolutely fantastic. But Moyes against the big boys does tend to be pretty pragmatic. He's happy to sort of put defence first and look to punish teams in sort of either breakaways or set piece situations. I think he'll be pretty determined not to lose this game. So I'm going to go with under 2.5 goals. But that's a bit short at 1.74. But if you pair it with both teams to score no, it jumps to 2.15. So effectively, we're back in 0-0, 1-0 either way, or 2-0 either way. And I like that. I really like that, because I'm not entirely sure which way it will go. Everton are the better team on form, but Manchester United have a very, very good record at Goodison Park and a great record against Manchester United overall, against Everton overall. So that kind of puts me off a little bit. United have failed to score in 10 different Premier League matches this season. Appalling, really. Only one team's failed to score more, and that's Everton on 12. So, 22 combined matches where they've failed to score. So the BTGS no appeals, as does unders. United away games are the lowest scoring on average in the Premier League this season. They average just 2. And 5 of Amorim's 7 Premier League away games have gone under 2.5 goals as well. Like United just look a little bit sort of out of ideas, really, going forward. And we know that Everton have had issues scoring goals as well. So yeah, I just see this being a bit of a dog of a game. Early kickoff, no one really into it. Under 2.5, both teams to score no, 2.15.
Yeah, Mark, I find it hard to disagree with anything Adrian said there.
Maybe. I think Everton will be up for it.
No.
No, I agree with most of it. I just think Everton are riding the crest of a wave right now following David Moyes' return. Remarkable turnaround in form. I know they weren't at their best, so they improved in the second half against Palace. It wasn't particularly pretty, but now 4 wins from 5 league games, all done without sort of 3 of their 4 main forwards, as well as Decore, who was suspended last week. It's incredibly commendable. He's back now this weekend. They are 13 points clear of the drop zone, so you could say job done, actually. But I thought David Moyes' quotes post-match were really interesting. He piled the praise on his players and Beto especially, but he also said he wasn't satisfied with the performance and sort of quite rightly suggested there's still plenty of work to be done, not just to secure survival, but finish the season as high as possible. We know that there's big financial incentives to do that, but also the Goodison Park factor. Time is running out to play your sort of home games in that stadium, so they want to sign off in style, really. So I expect Everton to be motivated, and yeah, I know this is a fixture they do tend to struggle in, but I just think price-wise and line-wise, I'm quite happy to be with them, considering how they're playing right now. Back them with a 0-ball start on the Asian handicap around about 183, same as draw no bet. I think that's a lovely position to be in, considering where United are right now. Adrian's mentioned the blanks that they've had so far this season, 10 in 25. It's now 12 defeats in 25 as well, which is their worst return in the top flight since 1974, the last time they were relegated from the top flight. I didn't think they were awful at Tottenham. I enjoyed the game a little bit more than Adrian, perhaps, because it was so end-to-end, open and scrappy. But, you know, if they had a bit more confidence in forward areas, they perhaps could have scored a couple of goals in that game, but they didn't. I did feel a little bit for them with so many injuries and illness as well affecting the camp. Casemiro had to be sort of parachuted back into the side, and he got pretty exposed in that midfield. They should be better for that run this weekend, but I'm still not willing to sort of back them with any kind of confidence, and I'm quite happy to oppose them, actually, because I've got them down in 15th on expected points over the last 12 games. No real improvement whatsoever there. And their away record this season, just 3 wins in 12 in the Premier League. And surprisingly, they do tend to toil against the lesser lights. They've won just once in 7 at teams in 10th and below, and scored just 6 goals in that 7-game sample, 3 of which came in their only win, which was at Southampton, who are quite obviously the worst team in the division. Everton at home, since Moyes returned, obviously romped into that 3-0 lead against Spurs, smashed Leicester up 4-0, and then took a point off Liverpool when they've showed real intensity and battle for the most part. So quite happy to have them on side, knowing the draw pays out in a push. So yeah, Everton +0 on the Asian handicap for me.
Yeah, tough. 2 good cases, under 2.5 goals, both teams to score no's, 2-1-5 with Adrian, but we will lean drawn about Everton. That's +0 on the Asian handicap line, and you will be getting the best price out there, 183 on that. Villa versus Chelsea. Take a look at the bet we currently have on matchfoot.com. Fascinating market, just given where these two teams seem to be at the moment. Villa 274, Chelsea slight favourites in Villa Park at 268. The draw is 3.8. Both teams to score yes, 155. The Asian handicap is drawn a bet effectively. Chelsea marginal favs at 198 and 3.5 the total here, but unders at 164. Yeah, Adrian, your assessment maybe of where these two teams are at, because I know Villa expected goals wise and Liverpool probably deserved to win the game in one sense, but watching it didn't really feel like that. I thought Villa at times looked a very good side under Emery once again.
Yeah, I found excuse me, I found this one a hard one to watch. It was a little bit stressful because every time I flicked it over, I was switching between that and the Real Madrid game where Liverpool scored. So it was I decided to steer away from it and wait for the highlights afterwards. But no, look, I think Villa created plenty of good chances in the game, didn't they? No doubt about that. I know that they're on results-wise a little bit of a poor run for them, but I can see signs that they're still a force to be reckoned with. And yeah, on another day, had fortune been on their side, you know, with the deflection, or you know, the right back doesn't give the ball straight to Jota inside his own box, they win the game, you know. So I think they're okay. I think they're a decent team. Watkins is back on form. Rodgers has been a bit more hit and miss lately, but he is a force. Got to say, Tielemans is having a great season. And I think it is good to have some of their key defenders back. You know, that was a big problem for them in recent weeks. But, you know, Mings is back now, and I think that boosts them big time. Rashford, he's going to be up and down, but I think he offers them something different as well, as does Asensio. So, yeah, I fancy Villa to turn Chelsea over. Got to say, I mean, my selection here is more anti-Chelsea than pro-Villa, but I just feel that in the here and now, Villa are better than Chelsea. Without Jackson up front, I just don't think they're the same team. They don't offer the same threat. They don't stretch games in the way that he helps them to. And that's a problem, definitely. 3-0 away at Brighton last Friday. Didn't have a single shot on target, did they? First time that's happened in, I think, 4.5 years. You know, really poor attempt really down there at the Amex from Chelsea. And I think Villa is slightly better than Brighton. I just feel that Chelsea are on the slide. That's how I see it in terms of their season. I actually now think they're outsiders for top 4, maybe outsiders for top 5, having been in such a good position. They've also just scored twice in the last 5 away games. You used earlier on in the season, they went away. They were a little bit swashbuckling, scoring, creating. That's kind of stopped happening. And for that reason, I don't fancy them at Aston Villa. Villa have a poor record against Chelsea. That should be said. But this is a Chelsea team that have lost at Ipswich. They've lost at City, lost at Brighton. They drew at Palace. That's all since Boxing Day. And across the board, home and away, Chelsea have kept 1 clean sheet in the last 10 games in all competitions, and that was at home to Morecambe. So I don't think they're keeping a clean sheet here. I think Villa are more than capable of scoring 2 or 3 goals, and I think that would be enough to win them this match. So I'm going to go with Aston Villa and over 1.5, and the price for me is decent, 3.2.
You're on mute.
Muted.
Mark, you're coming at it at a more pro, or as the similar pro Aston Villa angle, but more cautious with your approach here.
Yeah, I did my prep on Wednesday morning before Aston Villa played Liverpool, and I'd outlined Aston Villa plus a quarter of a goal on the Asian handicap at 1.8 as possibly my best bet of the weekend in the Premier League at that time. So kind of annoying that they performed pretty well against Liverpool and the market's moved in their favour now. But even still, Chelsea are still favourites at Villa Park, and that's not something I can agree with. There are reasons to be against Villa, which I have to highlight for balance sake. But, first of all, having to play a tough Wednesday night game when Chelsea have a free midweek. We've seen throughout the season that Villa haven't always been at their best at the weekend following a tough midweek match. So that's something to bear in mind. Also, too, the defensive unavailability of Pau Torres. Boubacar Kamara is still out. Disasi can't play against his parent club. But as Adrian says, Mings is back. Cash came off the bench. Konza, I think, is due back this weekend. So suddenly that back four does start to look quite familiar again. And further forward, I don't think there's any real concerns about the players' of ability in forward areas. I've been really impressed with Rashford's impact so far. Daniel Marlin as well. Marco Asensio's shown some nice touches too. So they're mainly the negatives. But the beauty about backing Villa with a quarter goal start, which I think has been down to about 175 now, is they don't need to win for us to make money. They avoid defeat and we make money, which is a fantastic position to be in, considering, I looked at their record since the start of last season, included Premier League and European games. So that's Champions League and Conference League games. They played 44 times now across those 3 competitions since the start of last season and lost just 5 times. Yet they're outsiders here against the Chelsea team who are out of form and have got issues in both boxes. And whatever you like about Villa, I know they kept just 1 clean sheet in 16, conceded multiple goals in 8 of those. I still like them. I think they played very well in patches there against Liverpool. We know that they can raise their game significantly when the big boys come to town too. And look, if Chelsea were in a bit of better shape, I'd probably leave this alone because of Villa's hard midweek match. But the fact is they've won 3 of the last 11 games, one of which was against Morecambe. They've won 2 of the last 8 in the Premier League. I've got them down in mid-table in expected points in the last 8 games. That performance at Brighton was quite alarming, really. 77% of the ball, failed to have a shot on target, just 0.5 expected goals. Playing very risk-adverse, possession-heavy football. It's been talked a lot about in the press, but it does look like they've been a little bit found out now with Maresca's style. It's either sort of Cole Palmer doing something outstanding, which hasn't happened now for quite some time. I think he's got just 3 goals and no assists in his last 11 matches. Otherwise, they're pretty impotent without Nicholas Jackson leading the line. And then you've got the sort of farcical goalkeeping situation too, a defence as well, but you can't be trusted with. And there's no way I can make them as favourites to win away at Villa Park. So happy to be a Villa with a quarter goal start.
Okay, yeah, it's whatever way you'd like to play it. Mark has the cautious approach for 176. But yeah, let's go for Villa win and over 1.5 goals, 3.2, and take on that anti-Chelsea angle from Adrian. And we'll move on to Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest. This is the Sunday 2:00 game before City versus Liverpool. Newcastle are 186 favourites at St James's Park. Forest are 4.4. The draw is 4.1. Both teams to score, yes, available at 167. The Asian handicap line sees Forest get a 3/4 goal head start, and 2.5 is the total. Mark, we're always looking for angles in betting, and you actually touched on one of them with the cards and maybe a recent drop in cards. Corners wise, is there any update there in terms of corners in the Premier League this season? Because I guess it depends on stylistically what teams take on each other, but we're always looking for patterns.
No, I've not seen anything obvious to sort of suggest that anything's changed in the winter after the early sort of autumn matches. I actually found this game quite tricky in terms of a betting contest. I wanted to be against Newcastle. I think they're too short at odds on quotes, but so my numbers make Forest a bit of a bet with a handicap start. But I've also got kind of concerns about Forest right now, which kind of put me in a bit of a predicament. But I have been against Newcastle a few times on this show recently. They flopped at home to Bournemouth. Obviously, they flopped at home at short prices against Fulham as well recently. Now lost 3 of the last 4, and I think Eddie Howe spoke recently about the risk of his side and a staleness about his side a few weeks ago when he was sort of asked about recruitment. Obviously, there was a very little of that going on, and I wonder whether the sort of emotional and physical fatigue following the reaching of a cup final has started to play an impact. Obviously, Joel Linton is missing as well. I think he's a big absentee. That's Ben Botman missing as well last week, and Anthony Gordon didn't look quite fit at City, but they just didn't turn up. They were so passive, and that's a concern really. But as for Forest, they have lost back-to-back away matches. Their goal at Fulham last week had a big element of fortune about it, and they lost a shot count 24-8 in that game. So didn't really create anything major of note in that loss. And my issue with Forest always is the fact, the importance of that opening goal, which we've touched on plenty of times. They've scored it 19 times, but when they've conceded first, they've lost 5 of 6 games. So they're an excellent side at preserving and protecting, but they clearly struggle when chasing games. And I think there's enough there for me to just leave this match alone and just sort of play it out and see how both teams perform, and perhaps sort of readjust my ratings on both sides going forward. But I did think the draw was a reasonable runner here at 4.1. But you mentioned corners, Dan, and I think corners is where I want to sort of head to in this match. Over 8.5 corners to begin with. That's the first leg of my 2-leg bet builder for this match. It's 1 in 10 of Newcastle's 12 home games, 11 of Forest's 13 away games. But I'm also going to back Newcastle to win the corner count, something they've achieved in 6 of their last 9 at St James's. Liverpool and Arsenal, 2 of the teams to actually win the corner count in that time. So, when they've been tested against the best, they've fallen short. But most of all, they tend to pick up plenty of corners, perhaps with that sort of aggressive wing play they have. In 8 of their 12 home matches, they've won at least 5 corners, which is always a good start. But this leg really kind of comes alive because of Forest, that pragmatic style, the protect and preserve approach. They've lost the corner count in 12 of the last 15 Premier League games, including an 8-2 corner count defeat against Southampton at home, as an example. 8-4 at Fulham last weekend, they lost, just 2 examples. And away from home, they've lost the corner count in 10 of 12 overall, and they've conceded 8 corners or more in 6 of their 13 away days, which is basically half. So this bet did win in the reverse match at the City ground, so it's 1.91 for a repeat, and I think that's a reasonable play to sort of cheer on Newcastle to win the corner count and over 8.5 corners overall.
Okay, that's 191. And Adrian, you're also looking at the props market, so I guess you found this game tough to call to start with anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I remember the game from last year. Forest picked them off, didn't they, on the counter? Absolutely brilliant away performance. I think it was one of the first games of Nuno's era, and Wood got a hat-trick, but it was all about Gibbs White and Elanga and Hudson-Odoi breaking on them at speed. So, we could see a repeat. But I feel Newcastle, because they're on this bad run, losing 3 of the last 4, I feel that Howe would have really got into them this week and got them revved up, and I think they'll be ready to go against the Forest team. Let's face it, that they're definitely on a slight downturn. It sounds crazy to say it after they smashed Brighton by 7, but there've been a few worrying signs. I think obviously the battering they took at Bournemouth was one, and last time out when they lost at Fulham, Fulham had 24 shots in the game. That back 3 didn't seem to work as well as it has done before. They didn't defend brilliantly, and they have to defend much better to tame Newcastle, won't they? Who are always pretty threatening going forward. So yeah, I think Newcastle will bounce back, but I'm not prepared to sort of back them. What I am prepared to sort of hang my hat on is Isak, and I know that Mark did this at the Etihad and it didn't come off, but he almost scored. And he almost always scores at St James's Park, doesn't he? His home record is phenomenal. And he scored in all 3 of his games against Nottingham Forest. He's got 4 overall against them in a Newcastle shirt. So it's a little bit of a lucky team for him. Isak is just a sensational front player, and he gets the bulk of goals for Newcastle at St James's Park. Now you can go for him just any time goal scorer. And that's 1.95, which is absolutely fine. But I just want to float an idea, and that's for Isak to score a first half goal. In 10 of Isak's last 13 goal scoring matches, he's netted before half time. So he's very much your sort of first goal scorer type guy, or if not the first, he'll get one before half time. 11 of his 17 goals overall have come in the first half. Now that's unusual. More goals tend to be scored in the second half of matches. Only Haaland has scored more first half goals than Isak. So yeah, lucky team. Newcastle desperate to get something going. Forest showing worrying signs in terms of their defending, certainly less solid on the road than they have been. And Isak in a little bit of a mini drought, was it 2-3 games without scoring? I think this is the moment for him to get back on it. So yeah, look, I'll be bold. I mean, you can go with any time score at 195, but for the reasons outlined, I think he could score in the first half 3.6.
Okay, yeah. So those 2 selections for Adrian. We'll actually lock the anytime Isak goal as the podcast pick from that game, and insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of all the guys' picks this week and every week. We'll move on to any other bets. Mark, you have 2 selections, starting with Notts County and both teams to score no versus Tranmere.
Yeah, it's a nice price. This 2.8. Notts are just 2 points off second place. They're fourth in League Two at the moment. I've got them ranked second on expected points. They've won 10 of 14 games against teams in 16th and below. In attack, they've got 2 of the best forwards in the division, McGoldrick and Xhaka. McGoldrick hopefully will be fit and available for this after missing out last time out against Colchester. But what's made the difference this year has just been their campaign's been underpinned really by a hugely improved defensive structure and process. They were a bit of a laughing stock defensively since coming back into the EFL, but they've massively improved that. And Meadow Lane have been very, very good. Just 9 goals conceded in 15 league fixtures. 7 of those have been 1-0, which is obviously the angle we're looking to take here at 2.8. Gives us an enormous boost on the straight Notts County price to win the game around about 1.6 to 2.8. Now, Notts are top of the expected points records at home. They've won the shot count in 13 of 15 at home. They give up just 0.85 XG per game at home and just 18 big chances in those 15 fixtures. And they are playing one of the worst teams on their travels in the EFL in Tranmere. Third bottom, they've won just twice since November's international break, losing 10 of 17. But their away record, 11 defeats in 15, 11 defeats and 16 away, 9 goals scored, 33 conceded. They failed to score in 8 of those 15. They've scored just 3 times in 8 trips to the top 11. Unsurprisingly, they are bottom of the away expected points records, averaged just 0.67 XG on the road, and they've generated a league low 11 big chances in those 15 games. They've lost the XG battle in 13 of 15 away as well. So we've basically got one of the strongest home teams against one of the worst away teams, and we're getting 2.8 on the home win to 0.
Okay, and second selection, Bayern versus Frankfurt. Both teams to score, combining with under 5.5 goals, gives us 183 backable price.
Yeah, it's actually under 6.5 goals. I put it wrong in the sheet. Which is even better, really. Bayern were absolutely battered last week at Leverkusen in that 0-0 draw. Really should have lost that game. The woodwork was hit twice. They cleared off the line, and Florian Wirtz missed a really good opportunity late on. Expected a much improved performance against Celtic in midweek, and it just wasn't. They were so lackadaisical. They could have been 2 or 3 goals down. Celtic, if they had their sort of shooting boots or a clinical edge, really should have beaten them that day. So yeah, they've been criticised heavily in midweek, so you would expect a response this weekend, but it's a tough game for them against the Frankfurt side, who have had their number a little bit in recent seasons, actually. Frankfurt are one of their bogey teams alongside Gladbach, actually, and the reverse game ended 3-3. And if you look at the last 8 Bundesliga meetings between these 2 teams, Bayern have only won 3 times, and only one of those victories was by a margin of 2 goals or more. Frankfurt have scored in 7 of those 8, and they've also scored in 8 of the last 9 trips to Munich as well. So yeah, I'm expecting something similar to what we saw in the reverse. Might not be 3-3, but definitely think both sides can get on the score sheet here. Frankfurt have proven in away trips to Leverkusen and Leipzig they can mix it with the best teams in the division, and fully expect them to score and contribute. But just including, BTTS as a standalone is around about 166, which I think is a great price as it is, but just boosting it to 1.8 by including under 6.5 goals. The only games that Bayern have seen produce 7 goals or more in the Bundesliga came against rock bottom Kiel, and Frankfurt have hit that tally just once, and that came against second bottom Bochum. So both sides can score, and hopefully we won't see 7 goals or more. If they do, fair enough.
Yeah, take your medicine if that happens. Adrian, 2 sections for you both in the EFL.
Yeah, two away teams actually. First one, I have to put a disclaimer out there because I'm backing Preston to avoid defeat at Coventry. Now Coventry are flying, absolutely superb under Frank Lampard. He's looking good. He sort of salvaged their season, and they're just on the fringe of the playoffs now. So full credit to him and the coaching staff. They've made massive improvements across the last 12 games. Coventry are the 4th best in terms of points tally. So well done to them. But I'm gonna go with Preston here for 2 reasons. First of all, Preston are very, very difficult to beat under Paul Heckingbottom. He's really sorted them out. The last 18 championship matches, Preston have lost 3. A lot of draws in there, but not very many goals conceded. And like I say, 3 defeats in 18. That is, that's incredible, really. It's a terrific record. He's got them going. Coventry have also lost 5 at home this season. So, the CBS Arena is not a fortress as such, even though they've made improvements. They are prone to the odd no-show at home. Preston have also recently won at Norwich and at Watford. So if you can win at Norwich and Watford had good home record. Norwich, very, very good home record. If you can win at those places, you can win at Coventry or certainly draw. So Preston plus half a goal is what really interests me here. So you're back in the draw or the PNE win. It comes out at 2.02. Now, the main reason why I've selected this is that Preston North End are the definition of a bogey team for Coventry. Okay. Coventry haven't beaten Preston in over 17 years. A terrible, terrible run. Out of the 45 games that they've ever locked horns in, going back to, I think, 1949, so 45 games, Coventry have won 6. They hate playing Preston. Now, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't come into play. But this is a proper bogey team for them. So I'm going to go with Preston. It was so hard to beat. To avoid defeat again, Preston plus half a goal, 2.02.
Okay, and the second selection there is Leyton Orient double chance and over 1.5 goals, 225.
225, yes, it's at Bolton. Now, Bolton's a tough away game. We know for obvious reasons. They've got a new manager in Stephen Schumacher, who has improved them. But I don't think he's quite got the balance between attack and defence right yet. I think they've conceded 5 across their last 2 games. They've won both those games, but they've conceded, I think, 2 and 3 respectively in those matches. So, they haven't quite got it right. And Bolton haven't been great at home this season. They've lost 5 in front of their own fans in this campaign. And they don't have a great record against teams above them. And Leyton Orient are above them. Leyton Orient are in the playoffs. Bolton have won 2, drawn 2 and lost 5 against teams ahead of them, which is effectively in the top 7. Leyton Orient are brilliant at the moment. Absolutely flying. They won at Wrexham last time out. They've beaten Stockport away as well. They're on a run, I think, of 7 unbeaten on their travels. And in those 7 away games, conceded 5 goals. So really well organised. They press. They make life difficult for opponents. They're just a really, really well-drilled team, Leyton Orient. And across the last 12 matches, the form table tells you they're the best team, even better than Birmingham in League One. They've claimed 31 points across their last 12 games, which is quite remarkable. Bolton in the same period have got 19 points. So it's a big old difference there in terms of their form coming into the game. So I'm going to go with double chance. I'm going to go over 1.5 because Schumacher's such an attacking coach that it'll go for it. It'll be quite a good game to watch. And also over the course of this season, Bolton matches have been pretty high scoring. Over 1.5 has landed in 84% Bolton matches, which is pretty high on the average scale. So yeah, I think this will be a good game, and that Orient can basically avoid defeat to Bolton and continue this remarkable charge towards the playoffs. It's they're one of the stories of the season. Orient double chance over 1.5, 2.25.
Okay, and all those bets will be recapped on Matchbook Insights. Long shot time, Mark, over to Burnley this season. If you're backing them to win to nil, if you're backing them to nil all draws, you're probably going to be in profit this season. It's tough almost for a market to react to that in some ways, isn't it? If a team is just bypassing all the trends and just keeping so many clean sheets, isn't it? Surely it's very hard for them to have a nil all draw in at maybe a 6.0 shot, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is even more difficult because the underlying metrics suggest that they overachieved in terms of their defensive data so far this season. James Trafford has been one of the outstanding goalkeepers in the Championship this season in terms of his post-shot XG figures. But credit to Burnley and credit to Scott Parker for engineering this incredible, remarkable defensive record. 11 clean sheets on the spin now in the Championship. The issue he's having and Burnley are having is turning those outstanding defensive performances into victories. Last weekend drew 0-0 with their rivals Preston, had the better of the game, but again just lacked a ruthless streak in front of goal, and it's something Parker bemoaned post-match, and ended up drawing that game 0-0. Another 0-0, 12 goalless games now this season for Burnley. And I thought, why not just back it again this weekend on Friday night against Sheffield Wednesday? It's 8.5, so it'd be rude not to. It's one of those bets where you think, I need to be on this more often than not at the minute, because it's now banked in 6 of Burnley's last 10 games since Boxing Day, which is just crazy, really. We know defensively they've managed, they've conceded just 9 goals and 33 all season, 12 clean sheets and 16 at home. No team has scored multiple goals against them all season, and they're playing a Wednesday side who have failed to score in all 6 games against the top 5 this season. So you could look to Burnley towards picking up another clean sheet. That's around evens. I think Burnley double chance and both teams to score no is slightly bigger, closer to about 2.2. The win to nil is about 2.5, but I'd rather just back the 8.5 here on the 0-0. As I say, it's now landed in 12 of 33 Burnley games, 6 of which have come in 16 at Turf Moor. I won't be watching this game because of this bet. It's not a fun bet to cheer on. I don't particularly think this game will be fun to follow anyhow. So, just stick a tenner on it or whatnot, and don't bother checking it until the full time and expect to lose. And who knows, we might be getting paid out at a nice price.
Mark, I'll let you into a secret. Well, it's not a secret. I'm at the game. I'm working on it. I'm doing co-commentary. I'm doing co-commentary for Talk Sports. So look, I've got to sit through it. I hope you are miles off it, but I suspect
it's not too far wrong.
You're probably there or thereabouts.
I do like the market. It keeps me engaged with the TV. If I've under cards or under corners or under goals, I'm just constantly watching, making sure nothing happens. So therefore, I'm engaged in it for 90 minutes. The phone's beside me; it's not being looked at. Anyway, Adrian, shock. If there's a shock this weekend in the EFL, where is it?
Yeah, I changed my mind last minute. I was tempted to go for Ipswich and both teams to score against Spurs, which would have been a fun one to back. The numbers didn't really stack up around it. It was more of a hunch than anything. I've landed on a straight on the nose win here. Any home team that's priced up at 4.8, I think is interesting, because the history tells us that there are more home wins than away wins. And Morecambe against Walsall really interests me in League Two. It's 23rd against first, so you would think, okay, 4.8 is fair enough, and it might be, but Walsall have lost their last 3 away games. They've definitely hit the buffers a little bit. They lost their star striker, their leading goal scorer, Nathan Lowe. Loney was recalled by Stoke, and haven't really been quite the same since. They did win last time out against Chesterfield. Jamil Matt's back in the team, and he'd been injured as well, so that does make a difference. But they're not in good form at the moment, and those 3 away games they lost, by the way, weren't against top sides, and the aggregate score was 7-1 across those 3 games. So for me, they're wobbling, and they're no longer a sure thing to win the title. Morecambe are fighting for survival, and there are signs of life in them under Derek Adams, who's a real fighter. They've won 2 of their last 3 games at home, Morecambe, which is positive. And this is really interesting. They've entertained 5 teams in the top 7, which is, the promotion bunch, at their ground. Is it the Globe Arena? It used to be called that. 5 home games against the top 7. They've conceded 5 goals, 1 in every single game. So they've shown throughout this season that they can get up for these tough games and they can be very, very competitive, and they can make life difficult for the big boys. And across the last 6 matches, the form table says Morecambe are ahead of Walsall. So I just think it might be worth a little tickle. Yeah, 4.8. If you're looking for an upset, it might come up there in the Northwest.
Okay, we'll move on to best bet time. And Mark, I don't often go to the EFL for best bet, but why are Bradford the standout bet for you this weekend?
Well, price really about 185 to beat MK Dons. Bradford put in a really, really strong effort in midweek in the EFL Trophy against Birmingham at St Andrews. They lost the game late on, but put in a much better performance than most League One sides have away at Birmingham this season, which kind of goes to show how strong they've been recently. Going into that game, they had won 9 of the last 13 League Two matches, home or away. But at Valley Parade, they have been formidable opposition in League Two so far this season. On points per game, they are the best home record in the division. They've won 12 of 16 overall at home so far this season, conceding just 10 goals in that sequence too. They're only 2 points off second at the minute, so they are vying for automatic promotion. And they're hosting an MK Dons side who were well fancied pre-season. I was all over them in various different markets. It just hasn't materialised whatsoever, and their sort of campaign is falling apart a little bit at the minute. Started poorly under Mike Williamson. He jumped off to go to Carlisle. Scott Lindsay came in, looked like a really sort of smart capture from Crawley, and despite some sort of early signs of promise, they've just fallen away again. Really underwhelmed despite a kind of batch of top-class signings in the summer and again in January. They've dropped down to 16th. They're 10 points off the playoffs and only 13 points off the bottom 2. 9 defeats in 15. Their last 7 away days, 1 win, 5 defeats, 18 goals conceded. I've actually got them second bottom of expected points over the last 12 games as well. 0.81 expected goals for, 1.6 against per game during that sample. Terrible stuff, really. And they've lost 11 of 14 when travelling to teams outside the bottom 6. Expect Bradford to get the job done, really, at a nice price. They're just a soft touch at the minute, MK Dons, and I don't think Bradford will take too many prisoners.
Okay, and Adrian, for you, best bet time. You've done the under 2.5 goals voting to score now in the early Premier League kickoff. Where is the other worst game of this weekend?
Well, it's 2 form teams, actually, Colchester United and AFC Wimbledon. You look across the last 8 games, actually, and Wimbledon are 3rd in the form table, Colchester are 4th. But neither team is scoring many goals. They've averaged 1 goal per game in that run. But Wimbledon have let in 1 goal in their last 8 games. Colchester have only let in 5 in their last 8 games as well. So these are 2 sides that are defending quite superbly at the moment. And there's some great numbers here. That's why I picked it out. Colchester home games average 2 goals per game. That's among the lowest. 67% of their home games have gone under 2.5. But both teams score nose landed in 60% of their home games as well. And across the last 8 Colchester games, full stop, there's been an average of 1.63 goals, and 5 of 8 have seen BTTS no land. So they're really strong numbers around Colchester. But look at Wimbledon, it's the same. Away games, 1.67 they average. That's the lowest across the whole of League Two. 11 of 15 away games under. 11 of 15 away games, both teams to score no has landed. And then across the last 8, how's it looking? Even worse, 1.13 goals per game across the last 8 Wimbledon matches. That's the lowest by far. 7 of the last 8 have gone under. 7 of the last 8 have seen both teams to score no land. So look, I just want to combo those 2 and go under 2.5. Both teams score no. It's not a huge price, but 1.96 still offers a bit of value.
Okay, insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the best bets there, long shots, and all the bets put up on the podcast. And we see a lot of you guys going over there, so well worth checking that out over the weekend. If you want a recap of all the guys' picks, a lot of Premier League action next week. We'll be back to preview all that. Enjoy the weekend's football. If you're having a bet on Matchbook or with Matchbook, and make sure you enjoy it. Make sure you bet responsibly. Make sure it enhances that enjoyment. We'll chat to you guys next week. Bye bye.